My fellow flames, welcome back to another Wuthering Waves video. My name is Amethyst, and Manai, the brand new 5-star resonator coming to 3.0, has caused a little bit of ruckus in the community, and for not the very thing you might think. Basically, if we come over here on to Twitter, we can see Manai right before your very eyes, but here's the thing. When we first saw Manai, people were assuming maybe she's Spectro, maybe she's Electro, but what they didn't expect is that she is going to be a fusion broad blade character, and this stirred up a little bit of a ruckus. People for some reason are just not happy that she's a fusion broad blade user. I myself, I don't really care. I'm going to be summoning for Manai. Manai and Luke are my two top priority characters within the 3.0 units roster. Within 3.x, Manai and Luke in that specific order, Manai being at the top, then Luke being second. Those are my two high priority characters to collect. I don't know why people are upset about Fusion Broadblade user being Manai. Maybe because it felt like, you know, it was going one way, and maybe it's because we thought Manai was going to be Electro or Spectro due to the banner looking purple like Spectro, like Electro, and maybe her actual overall design gave people the Spectro vibe. I don't know, but those are the two elements that people thought she was going to be. And I saw a few people thinking she was going to be a rectifier character, but no, she's a Broadblade fusion character. And some people are saying, why do we have another fusion character when we have Looper and when we have other characters that released this year that are fusion, like Brant as well? But I don't think this is a massive issue. Granted, this probably shouldn't have been purple. Her design is a little bit misleading because I also assumed she was going to be Electro or at a push Spectro, but no, she's fusion and she's a Broadblade character. Now, I'm biased because I'm a Broadblade lover. I love Broadblades, claymores, big two-handed weapons. I love that. So in terms of her being a Broadblade user, I don't really care. In terms of her being a fusion, I would have preferred if she was Electro. I'm not gonna lie to you, I think Electro needs a little bit of love. Even though we got Augusta, I think another Electro character like Manai would have been great. But no, Manai isn't Electro, she's not Spectro, she's Fusion. And there's a little bit of, you know, discourse, not too much. Some people don't really mind. I'm in the category of someone that doesn't really care. But some people are a little bit upset about this. Some people aren't too comfortable with Manai being a Broadblade fusion character. But we're not gonna talk too much more about that because we're gonna react to someone who has probably a better perspective, someone who's probably got a better opinion than me, someone who is a theory crafter, someone who talks about meta a lot, someone that essentially knows what they're talking about when it comes to the gameplay, the compositions, the elements, everything to do with Wuthering Waves. So we're going to be reacting to a Juice video. Yes, guys, it's been a little bit long overdue since we reacted to a Juice video. I love Juice's content. We're going to react to a Juice video talking about Manai is another fusion unit. Let's see how Juice has reacted towards Manai.
Mornye's attributes have been...
By the way, guys, if you enjoy this reaction and enjoy this video, hit that like, comment, and subscribe if you are new. Without further ado, let's get into it.
Revealed. Let's talk about it.
Yes.
My name is Juice, and let's get into it. Okay, so another fusion character.
Yes.
I was already kind of at my limit with them when we got Galbrina, but another fusion.
Oh, that's right. Galbrina was also a fusion character. So we've had 3 fusion characters this year. So fusion has become a little bit oversaturated. Maybe not too much oversaturated, but it was a very favored element this year. In 2025 in terms of fusion units. And I believe this is setting up a few things happening in Lahai Roy, specifically around characters that are not yet released, such as Geshu Lin. I believe the Shu Yu Wen story happened for a reason, and I believe Geshu Lin is going to be a fusion Broadblade user, another Broadblade user that's fusion, and I think he's going to be releasing in 2026. I don't know when. I can't put a time frame on on when he's releasing in 2026, but I believe characters like him are releasing in 2026. So maybe they're setting up his release with other units. Maybe they have something else planned. Maybe they want to really give fusion the spotlight for a little while, but I don't know why. But we've had 3 fusion units this year, so the fact that we're getting a 4th coming very, very soon is interesting.
Character, really?
I don't care though.
Obviously, this does not detract from my excitement for this particular character. I think she is just way too interesting to write off because of a mere element. However, I do have to ask, after a certain point, when do we get enough fusion characters, Kuro? This unit would have
When Geshulin releases, then they'll stop.
been a perfect Glacio. We barely have any.
Yeah, to be fair, we have no Glacios. We need more. Who was the last Glacio character to release? Was it Carlotta, or did we get another one? Was it Carlotta? Was the last? I'm pretty sure there must have been one more. Surely, no? There must have been one more. Was there no other Glacio characters other than Carlotta? Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to sort of go over in my mind because I know Aero got a lot of love this year. Aero and I'd say Aero and Fusion have been the two elements that have been favored this year. We had Chiacona, we had Aero Rover, we had Cartathea. We had a very good amount of Aero characters as well. Isn't wait, Shu Yuen's also Aero, right? So yeah, we had technically 4 new Aero resonators. And now we're getting a 4th fusion resonator. So they're really throwing the spotlight on those 2 elements this year.
Glacio limited 5 stars, and that hurts because I personally really like the Glacio element.
So do
I
I.
just think that the ice element in general is a really cool one. This would have been a good candidate for that. Now, to be fair, Kuro Games is usually pretty silly with elements. They don't usually use elements that correspond with a character's color scheme. They usually do it for more lore-based reasons. Like how Augusta is Electro because of solar plasma energy,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool. So I'm sure there is a proper.
Yeah, I think everyone thought that Augusta was gonna be Fusion, to be honest, Fusion or Havoc, but she turned out to be Electro. So again, that was a shot in the dark, and no one saw that coming either.
Reason for her for being Fusion, and there are actual reasons as to why she is, and I know that it's not as simple as this character is predominantly white and bluish, therefore they should be a Glacio. I know it doesn't work like that. However, as somebody who is actively waiting for the next Glacio limited 5-star release, it does still hurt a little bit. I would like to see a new Glacio character added to WuWa. However,
So would I.
with that being said, what can we expect from Mornye? Here's the thing. Obviously, like I said,
Is that how you pronounce her name, Mornye? I'm calling her Manai. I'm calling her Manai. Mornye sounds way cooler. In my opinion, she is going to be. I think she's going to be a lot more memorable for me if her name is Mornye than Manai. Manai just doesn't sound like a catchy name. Mornye or Manai, that's got a bit more oomph, a little bit more, a little bit more grit, a little bit more gravity to the name Mornye. Not, who you go, oh, we're going to go see Manai. No, you've been summoned by Mornye or Mornye. Oh, this is the Mornye. Oh, God, sorry.
In my Lenny videos, it's kind of hard to say what these characters are going to do based on absolutely no information other than just their weapon type and their element, because we're heading into 3.0, and we can very much expect there to be some kind of new gimmick or mechanic that is going to be introduced in Lahai Roi. Now,
I mean, yeah, we got the new finisher mechanic that is in one of the new events, so I'm going to be trying that out very soon.
Explored of the 3.0 characters, I wouldn't be able to tell you that because both Carlotta and Roshia, who released in 2.0, were not really any pioneers of any new sort of playstyle. I suppose you could argue Carlotta somewhat was because she ended up having 2 separate alt animations, but I more so mean the whole negative status gimmick wasn't really introduced properly until Phoebe. Yes, Rover had the mechanic in 2.0, but it basically didn't do anything before Phoebe came out. Now, in 3.0's case, we don't know what the gimmick is going to be, we have no hints as to what the gimmick is going to be, and we don't know if it's going to be explored with these new characters, but there is a chance. Now,
there's a high
I will
chance.
say this, because Lenny was the first dripped character for 3.0, I expect Lenny to be the main DPS and for Mornye to be a support of some variety, simply because that is how
make Mornye a DPS, or at least a sub DPS. Don't make her a support, and don't make Luke a support. The 2 characters I want most, don't make them bloody supports. We literally just got Chisa, who is a 3rd slot character. We've still got Shorekeeper, who is a universal amazing character. Shu Yuen was a supporting character, though everyone wanted him to be a DPS. I summoned for him. I haven't used him once. I'm using Chisa more than bloody Shu Yuen. Make them DPSs, please.
has structured it for the past long while. We haven't seen any deviation from this structure, except in single 5-star release patches where they prioritize releasing support units. I'm not too sure if she's going to end up being a 2nd or 3rd slot teammate for Lenny in particular, simply because a character releasing in the same patch as a DPS doesn't automatically mean that unit is going to end up being their support. think about it like this. Brant Wuthering Waves released in the same patch as Phoebe. That doesn't mean that he was made as a Phoebe support.
Yeah.
Far from it. Zani and Shakona released in the same patch. However, Shakona wasn't made for Zani. She was made for the character that came directly after her.
Yes.
That being Cardathea, so on and so forth. And also there was...
The reason why I don't think a lot of these characters... There might be one... I mean, how many characters was teased? 5 characters for 3.0? I think one is definitely confirmed to be a support, potentially 2, because I think Chisa was designed to be the prime supporting character for a lot of these new units. So I think we've technically got... I mean, I consider Chisa a 3.x character because she actually attended in Lahairoi. So technically you could say she's from Lahairoi. So I would say she's a 3.x character in terms of what she's meant to be doing and who she is in lore and in her mechanics. So yeah, Chisa is also a supporting character for these units. And I think that Manai and Luke are not going to be primarily supports, maybe a sub DPS, and one of them's a DPS, but you know, maybe Lin, is it Linne or Lin, whatever her name is, or Lucilla. I feel like those two give me support character vibes more.
Cantarella, who released on her own in a singular 5-star patch, and later on ended up becoming Forlova's best installed teammate. So, just because she may end up being a support character doesn't necessarily mean that she is going to be good for Linny in particular. Maybe she will, or she could end up being good for a future character, or she's going to end up buffing a part of the roster that we already have. I'm not too sure. They could make her an archetype buffer like what Cho Yuen is, where he's really good for echo skill damage characters, or how Yuno is really good for heavy attack damage characters, so on and so forth. That would make sense, because we've been getting more of those recently. Even Chisa as a 3rd slot teammate is specialized towards negative status teams, so there is that to consider. And I guess you could make the argument that she could end up being something to do with the fusion negative status, but I don't really think they're going to be focusing on negative statuses within 3.0.
I don't know. I think they might be. I disagree. I think negative status effects are going to be very much present in Lahairoi. I think they might incorporate another mechanic as well. Like, we've already got the finisher mechanic coming in, and the brand new, like, not the reverberation bar like the other one where you can deal more damage and counter them. But I do think that there'll still be negative status effects going on in the new characters, and I think that's why Chisa does what Chisa does. I think that's why Chisa is who she is and buffs negative status characters. I think at least 1 or 2 of these new 3.x characters are going to be status effects.
I think that if anything, they are either going to make the 2 characters in this patch decently accessible, or they are going to make them...
Please make Manai the first character. Manai or Luke. Don't pair them together because that'll piss me off. And don't put them as later characters. Please make them number 1. Make them like the debuting 3.x characters if you want 2 characters. Have one of those 2, Luke or Manai. That'll be sick. Not Lucilla. I don't care about Lucilla. I don't care about Linne. I don't care about... Who's the other one with the bike? Or whatever. I don't know. I don't really care. You got the redhead ginger one, and you also got the one with the bike. I don't care about those. I don't care about Lucilla. I care about Manai, and I care about Luke.
Focus on whatever the new region's gimmick is. I don't really expect them to focus on a 2.0 mechanic, and I especially don't think they're going to do that with Linny. Now, I'm not as confident with that with Mornye, simply because she is the second half character, so maybe they take more liberties there, but I am not particularly sure. As for what we can tell from the weapon type, okay, in Linny's case, because she's a pistols user...
Linny's the bike one. Yes, Linny is the bike one. So is that who the first... Now, I'm a little bit behind. I've been away for the past week, so that means that's who's the first... The 3.x is going to be Manai and Linny, and Linny's going to be the first phase 1? If that's the case, then I got lots of time to save up for Manai. It's perfect. Splendid.
If she's an attack scaler, she's probably going to be decent on static mist, because it's been a general trend that limited 5-star DPSs that are pistols users tend to be pretty good on static mist and aren't in absolute need of their signature weapons. Now, because I'm expecting Mornye to be a support, and she's a fusion character, perhaps Wildfire Mark is going to end up being good on her. It depends if she's able to utilize the passive or not, but that could end up being nice because it is a supportive weapon, and if she ends up being good for fusion characters, well, then that's going to be a nice option. If she does end up having anything to do with negative statuses, then Kumokiri is a recently released Broadblade that might end up becoming good on her.
Yes.
But I personally don't know if either of those are going to end...
To be fair, if I don't use Chisa in the future, I most likely will. But if I don't choose to use Chisa, then I might just give, Kumokiri to Manai. Depending on how Manai's weapon looks, I guarantee Manai's weapon's gonna look amazing.
Ends up being any good on her, we're just gonna have to wait and see. Wildfire Mark, I think, has potential if she ends up being good for fusions, but I just don't think Kuro is going to make another character that is really tailored towards fusion teams. To be fair, Galbraina wasn't necessarily tailored towards fusion teams. She could absolutely utilize Lupa very well. However, she had other teams and she was simply a good fusion hypercarry. The triple fusion team has already been completed for a long time. So personally, I think they're going to go in more of a Choyuan or Yuno direction, where she is going to be an archetype support, as opposed to being anything for fusion specifically.
No, I disagree. I personally do just disagree, but then again, Juice probably knows, she has more experience and knows more about these kind of games. But I personally disagree. I think Manai is going to be a sub DPS. I think she's going to do decent damage. I think that's as big of a support as she's going to be a middle character, like a middle slot character, where she's going to... You've got the third slot that's going to be the overall main buffer, like Showkeeper and Chisa. I think Manai, at least, is going to be a second slot character, where she's going to deal a decent amount of damage and primarily support the main DPS. I'd love her to be a main DPS, but I don't know if she's going to be... which one she's going to be out of those two. Definitely not a third slot character. I don't believe that in the slightest. If she is 3.0's character, then I don't think so, especially because Cheese is just released.
Because I just personally think it will be weird to do that when we already have Lupa in the game and we already have such an abundance of fusion characters. It is a little bit disappointing that we're getting another fusion, because I feel like we have...
Literally, my two favorite elements are Electro and Fusion, so I don't care. I do not care. Give me the fusions. Give me the Electros, give me the fusions, honestly.
So many already, but that is exactly why I feel like we're probably not going to get a character that has anything to do with fusion, simply because we already have that kind of completed at this point. That attribute has been given more than enough attention, very, very much attention, so I think it's going to be fine from here on, and they are hopefully going to make Mornye a character that does literally anything but support specifically fusion teams. So unfortunately, the weapon doesn't really tell us much. I would say that if she does end up being a support, you don't really have to sweat it too much, because generally speaking, support weapons aren't really needed.
No, yeah, I agree with that. I agree. If you have a main supporting unit, like I don't have Showkeeper's signature weapon. Showkeeper carries near enough 90% of my teams. Like genuinely, you don't. If it's a main supporting character, it's not imperative that you need their weapons. And usually with supporting characters, they usually release 4-star weapons that are going to indirectly buff and support that specific supporting character anyway. There's usually a 4-star weapon for every single character that you can use next, you know?
Recently, they have been providing team-wide buffs, and those do...
And the Battle Pass also now has a new selection of weapons, not just the originals.
Who tend to be nice to have. But generally speaking, you can far more easily get away with not having signature weapon on a support than you can with a main DPS. So I wouldn't really worry about that too much as of now, especially if you're interested in both of the 3.0 characters. And as for the attribute, I think that if we use logical deduction, she is probably not going to be a strict fusion support, simply because I just don't think that would make sense. It will be really weird of Kuro to add more to a team that is already complete. I mean, maybe she could end up replacing somebody in the triple fusion team if they wanted to upscale that team. I don't really think it needs upscaling. It is already plenty strong enough, but they could do that if they wanted to.
True.
Now, what if she ends up being a main DPS?
Yes.
Well, I would just find that weird. First of all, because Kuro Games has never released 2 main DPSs in a singular patch before. There is a first time for everything.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that they have to do it like that, just because that's what they've always been doing. However...
Do it. Kuro Games, do that. I would love that.
I wouldn't expect them to release 2 DPSs in a patch, because we have literally never seen that happen before.
It'll be great.
Maybe this will become a first time, but I don't expect it.
I want to see how people would react if there was 2 main DPSs in one patch. How crazy would people go? Genuinely, how crazy would people go? They would either be over the moon excited, or they'd be so pissed off. And I would be so here for it, because I wouldn't care.
Other thing is that we recently got Galbraina. We already have a good fusion DPS that hasn't fallen off yet and is still very strong and competent in the current meta. So I just think it will be weird of them to make another fusion DPS when we already recently got a good fusion hypercarry and we already have a triple fusion team. So that is why I'm saying I think they are probably planning Mornye to focus more on whatever the 3.0 gimmick is, or they are going to have her buff a previously existing archetype like basic attacks or skill damage or something like that. Like I said, a Yuno or Choyoen type support, because otherwise this would be a very redundant release. We just don't need more fusions.
True.
And if they're upscaling the existing fusion characters more, all I can ask is why. There are other things we could be adding to the meta right now that would probably be more useful.
Absolutely.
I can't say right now.
I do agree there's a lot more useful things to be added to the meta, but I just don't see the big deal. Maybe now that's not me saying that it is a bad thing that Manai is a fusion, you know, broadblade wielder, and she could be a sub DPS or main DPS. I'm not saying that. I personally don't see the big deal, but I understand people's points. Like, I do understand what Juice is saying. I do understand that it is a bit weird, and I do understand that fusion with the release of Manai has become a little bit oversaturated. Not too much, but this year had definitely the MVP elements has been fusion and aero. Those have been the two elements that have been really taking the helm of this year's releases.
Oh, and judge if she is going to be a good pull or not, because who the freak knows? We don't have any
I'm going to be summoning because she looks cool.
Information on her
That's
that
it.
is concrete right now. We have an attribute to go off of and a weapon type to go off of. That can give us some information. Like in Lenny's case, it made me believe that she is likely to be able to use Static Mist, but in Mornye's case, there is very little for me to say other than there is a chance that she could use Wildfire Mark nicely, and if she is a negative status character, well then there is a chance that she's going to be able to use Kumokiri nicely. But otherwise, I don't really think there is much we can deduce here, simply because I think, and I sincerely hope, that Kuro Games is going to do something unique with this character's kit, simply because another basic fusion support that helps out fusion characters would be extremely random, because we already have that archetype so well fed at this point. We need more Glacios, we need more attention to the others. Now, am I gonna be completely against it if they make a new fusion support that's really good for Lupa and Changli and Brant and all that? Yeah, kinda. I don't really want more.
I thought she was going to be like, no, not really. But no, I'm going to have a problem. I'm going to say something. I love that.
For that, I would prefer a more unique kit that focuses on something new. And I do think that's what we're going to get. I think
I might make a video about this. Watch there be, at some point within the next year to a year and a half, don't know when, within the period of the next 18 months, watch there be the first ever dual element character. Dual elemental. So you know how like characters transform, like Zani transforms and how Kartathea transforms and they have a second form. Watch there be a character that transforms and goes, while they're in their transform state, they're a different element. It's like a sub element. Like you've got the main element of the character, but while they're in this transformed state, there's like a sub-element. Watch that be the case. I guarantee Kuro have definitely thought about it. If they haven't already, they will soon. If they want to keep switching it up, that'll be a mechanic that I think would sell really well. It would be a great selling point. Like, can you imagine if Geshu Lin releases, his primary element is Havoc, and then when he activates the Black Flame, and he goes a little bit berserk, he has like a berserk form, it's fusion. I think that would be a huge selling point. Huge selling point. And then there'll be like for that specific character, there are separate as like another echo thing. You could put an echo in there that buffs it. I think that's that'd make print money. That would print money. That would print money.
It would be weird if they continued focusing on the past like that in a 3.0
money
update patch. And that's not to say that old characters can't get upscales. I think that's an amazing thing that Kuro's really good at, going back and making sure that all old characters do have new teammates to play with, and they make sure that everyone is kept up to a decent degree, so that you can indeed clear with whoever you want if you're willing to put in the investment and pull the right teammates. That's fine. I just think that with this specific archetype, we are fine for now. So if she ends up being a DPS, she's gotta do something unique so that she isn't just redundant in the face of Galbrena, and if she's a support, I sincerely hope that she's going to be a support that isn't just Fusion Shield.
It sounds like Juice is having a bit of a crisis in her brain because Juice is saying she doesn't really know what they want Manai to be. But if it is one of the two, whether it's the DPS, sub-DPS, or support, make Manai unique enough. But it also sounds like a little bit that Juice is leaning more towards the main DPS.
And she is able to do something for just the wider array of a certain genre of character, or she is able to do something really good for Linny, or something along those lines. I will also add that the chance of her being good for Linny isn't literally zero, because consider this. Augusta and Yuno released in the same patch, and Yuno is Augusta's best in slot.
Yes.
She also happens to be fantastic for the heavy attack damage archetype on the whole. I'm kind of hoping that Mornye is going to be something like that, really good for Linny, while also being a good character.
Bit of a side note, this bloody Cartethia's damage is stupid. What have you given? Look at these numbers. What have you given her? What is she eating? She's eating her vegetables. She's getting her protein shakes in. God damn.
She's going to be buffing. That is my personal hope. We'll just have to see if it pans out or not. Hopefully this video is able to tell you about Mornye's new attributes. This has been Juice, signing out. And I don't even know what to say about the fact that she's a Broadblade. Like, we have so many Rectifier users in the game. This one will be a pretty understandable one, right? And then she's Broadblade. But you know what, Kuro Games? Just do your thing. I'll let you cook.
Yeah. Splendid. Splendid. Absolutely splendid. Another great video from Juice. I'm a huge fan of Juice. I really, really am. I'm a huge fan of Juice. I'm very, very happy to react to Juice's content. Go subscribe to Juice. Great CC. A very good theory crafter and meta critic and a meta player of the gacha games such as Genshin, HSR, and WuWa. But thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe if you are new. Once again, I'd like to say thank you for all of the support on the channel recently. We're going to be playing some more Where Winds Meet soon, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, see you in the next one. Take it easy and have a good rest of your day.